All right. So, Shilla, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's great to have you on set. Just going to get from
Thank you for inviting
herbal
me.
tea there because I didn't do a coffee. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on set. We really, really appreciate you coming all the way up to Liverpool to share a little bit about you, your journey. Before I get stuck in with the questions, could you please introduce yourself to our audience who have never heard of you and tell me what do you do and why you do it? Who are you?
Yeah.
What do you do? And why do you do it?
Gosh, it's such a good question. So I'm Shilla, as you said. I feel like I wear many hats. So I'm a mom.
Okay.
I think out of everything else, that's my most exciting role. I'm a mom of 3. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old. So I'm a
5-year-old,
3-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
You do not look like a mom. You know what? Yeah, don't care what anyone says. Black don't crack, because I'm sorry.
Clearly.
You do not look like a mum of 3.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you how old you are, you know.
We don't need
online.
To but yeah, so,
wow.
So I'm a mom, I'm a wife. But in addition to that, I'm also an academic. I'm a researcher. So I'm conducting my PhD research, which looks at caregivers who have gone on to become parents. And essentially that's just anybody who's grown up in the care system.
Right.
That journey of then becoming a parent.
Interesting.
And also I recently started a podcast.
Right.
The Doctor's Diary.
I've seen this.
Yeah.
I've seen this. Okay.
It's a new baby to me.
Yeah.
And with that, I have a passion for, just sort of widening things and sort of granting more access to certain people who don't normally have access to higher education. So with the Doctor's Diary, I interview medical doctors and PhD holders about their academic journey.
Right, okay.
Just as a way of, letting young people who are aspiring to become doctors actually see that you can do it.
Yeah.
Regardless of race, gender, whatever, that you think is a limitation. Yeah.
Word. So basically you wear a couple of hats then. You wear a few hats. Okay. Mum, wife, academic, podcast host. You do a lot of things. My first question then leads me on to the work-life balance issue. Because personally, I can't imagine what it looks like to be, first of all, an academic and a mum at the same time, just because academia doesn't always leave much room for a life.
Or anything else.
So what does balance look like to you at this point in time? And for the fact that you have 5 toddlers.
3.
3 toddlers, 5, 3 and 1.
Yeah.
What does balance look like to you, or is there balance at present?
Funny you say that, because I've had several conversations with people and I've sort of reached a point where I feel there isn't such a thing as balance. Okay. I think what's required is for you to work out what's a priority at each and every given moment of your life. So like you said, academia is quite demanding. There's a lot of reading. And being a PhD student, there's so many other people out there who are conducting research at this very minute. So I have to stay up to date.
It's competitive.
And yes, very, very competitive. So it takes so much out of you. And being a mom equally requires, the same amount of energy, if not more. Yeah. And for me, I've learned to prioritize things based on what I'm doing at that moment. So let's say at the beginning of my PhD, I had to attend a couple of research modules. So I knew that I couldn't miss those. I had to do that. Yeah. But there are also times where I know that the PhD, I can put it on hold and I need to spend time with my kids. Yeah. I can't substitute them for my dreams, my goals, because essentially they didn't ask to be born, right? So I chose that. But the thing with me, I love a challenge. I love the pressure, and it might not sound healthy, but I enjoy being busy. I do enjoy some downtime and just relaxing, but I prefer being busy and, ticking things off my to-do list. Yeah. That's what energizes me. I feel that I have a sense of purpose. And for me, being a mom, I feel it's important for my kids to see me pursuing my dreams, taking things off, getting it done. funny thing, when I did my master's degree, I was pregnant with my son.
Right.
And actually, I did an undergrad before that.
Is that your firstborn?
My last born.
Okay.
So when I did my master's, I was pregnant with him, and I would attend lectures.
Wow.
I gave birth
like
at the
this?
beginning. Yeah, I did that.
Oh my
Gave
gosh.
birth beginning of January. Had a couple of weeks off. Went back to uni. I didn't physically need to go back in, but I still attended my lectures online.
Right.
And I had the option to take time off, but for me, it was really important that I carried on, because that's what I desired to do. And I like that, being able to do that and knowing that I'm setting a foundation for myself, and the time is going to come when the PhD is done.
Yeah.
The time is going to come when all these other things, they are done and they don't need me to be present 24/7. And then I can enjoy so much more time with my kids. So
that's so interesting. Especially the laying the foundation element. Because now I don't know if we're the same age group here, so I'm not going to compare dates of birth on screen. But let's say we are around the same age, and I believe we are. You've made a decision to have your children while you pursue said career goals, laying that foundation. I actually made the decision that I need to put some things in place, put some parameters in place before I could, because I think there was a fear of not being able to balance the both. So that's why my first question was, what does balance look like to you? Because we are both trying to pursue a PhD right now.
It's tough. Yeah.
I already feel the demand of trying to do so and having my hands in many baskets. So I think, wow, it must take a certain level of grace to do so and be minding the health and the well-being of other little human beings. My question is, have you ever got to a point, particularly in that PhD journey, where you felt like it's not manageable? And how did you get past that point? Because you're still doing it.
Yeah.
You haven't given
still
up.
Going.
But have you ever found yourself in a moment of such?
I think I would say yes, only because what's gotten me to this point where I feel like you need to learn to prioritize.
Yes.
Is going through that season where I felt like I have to do everything all at once. I have to say yes to this opportunity. I have to say yes to that other opportunity. I have to prove myself.
Yeah.
That whole idea of imposter syndrome, because especially being a first year PhD student, now I'm in my second year, I'm sort of comfortable. I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know I deserve to be here.
Word.
I know I've put in the work. I know I'm getting the grades.
Word,
But at the start of my PhD journey, walking into that room and being around other academics, there was sort of a fear in me that maybe somebody will realize that I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this place, right? So I felt like I had to take on so much, any opportunity that came my way. And obviously being a Black female
in that space.
And a mother, I felt like I had to prove myself. But I think for me, I had a wake-up call.
Right.
I remember speaking to one of my supervisors and saying to them, oh, there's this person who's reached out to me and they've offered me to write a chapter in their book.
Interesting.
And I was so excited.
And was this your first time writing for publication?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember going, being so excited and thinking, this is a great opportunity. And my supervisor said, it is exciting that somebody has thought of you, but you do realize that you can publish your own book. You can concentrate on your PhD and publish your own academic book. And I think for me, that sort of opened my eyes, and I realized that this is my supervisor who's read my work. He knows the standard of my work, and he feels that I'm good enough, that I can do this. And I think for me, that was enough to then say, okay, slow down. What matters right now? Concentrate on the PhD. Yes, some opportunities, I'll say yes to them. Yeah. But other things now I've learned to say, no, actually, I can't do it, because if I experience burnout, then I can't be present for my kids.
You can't keep going. Yeah.
And I'm a wife.
Yeah.
So my husband still deserves my attention and my, and just as much energy as I put into the kids, as I put into my career. So I think it's just realizing that, even being a Christian, I genuinely believe that what's for me is for me. So if I say no right now, opportunities will still come anyway. So it's just about being able to sort of figure out what can I say yes to right now and what, can I let go for now?
Yeah, I love that faith element there. But I think even the point there of that wake up call that you had and that kind of interaction with your supervisor. Sorry, but anyone that's trying to do a PhD, get yourself a good supervisor, because they will make you or break you. Because mine, Chandrika, shout out to you if you're listening to this, because I know she listens to our podcasts. But having a very supportive supervisor that sees the best in you and sees your potential makes all the difference.
Yes.
And we need more mentors and role models and those that stand before us to see that in us, so we would be more equipped and more encouraged to make those right decisions.
100%.
Whoever your supervisor is, shout out. Shout out, because
Definitely.
that's so encouraging to hear. Because I thought you were going to go down the line that the supervisor said, don't do it, because you're in your first year, you don't have capacity to do that, so just don't bother.
Not at all.
But to hear that was the encouragement, and said that actually publish your own whole book.
And I think also another thing to add to that, my supervisor was only sharing his opinion. So at the end of that conversation, he still said, it's up to you to decide whether you want to pursue this, because it is a great opportunity. And I think for me, what was important is just him acknowledging that I'm good enough, that I can do it on my own if I decide to go down that route. But if I decide to accept this offer, then I'm doing so knowing that in future, I can still publish my own academic book when the time comes as well.
Absolutely. On the subject of book, I saw that you published your own book. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Let's talk about this book then. So could you put it up on screen and show the camera this book? So it says, Into the Light, out of darkness into his light. Can I ask first and foremost, why have you spelled into like that? That's not how you spell that in English.
No, not quite.
Okay.
So I put a U there because this book, when I was writing it, I was addressing an individual.
Right.
So it's taking you as an individual out of whatever challenges you're facing, whatever you define as darkness, and going into God's light.
Right,
essentially.
Okay. Yeah. So is this addressed to people of faith then? Because you've just said God's light.
Well, not necessarily, because I think being in darkness, anybody can be in darkness, right? A believer and an unbeliever. So it could actually help somebody who doesn't have faith at this moment in time. It's sort of an invitation.
Right,
so perhaps you've never had that relationship with God. Then sort of come out of darkness, come into the light and see what it's like. Being
so anybody, everybody can access this book. Now, can you hold it up again? Can I hold it?
You can.
I just... haven't really got my nails done, but we're just going to show it anyway. So Into the Light. So can you kind of give us some context about... Can we see this? Can you give us some context then about this book in terms of what provoked you to write this book? What time of life were you in when you felt like, oh, this is a good idea, I'm going to write a book?
Yeah.
Just your backstory, please.
With this book, it's packed with little stories that are my personal stories. So a couple of things that I've experienced. And I wrote this book over a 10-year period. So I wasn't constantly writing for 10 years, but I would
I'm sorry, how old is Shilla? If she's been writing a book for right, we're not gonna...
We are not discussing
We're not going to talk about age. I've said that, haven't I?
But I
over
would...
a 10-year span?
Yeah, I would type a little bit depending on what I'm going through and if I felt that was important to share. And then I would sort of put the book on the side because I just felt it wasn't ready. Yeah. And then I would go back to it. And my reason for writing this book, or the time that I started writing it, I was in a residential children's home.
Right.
And for me, it was important to have somewhere where I could just empty my experiences.
Right.
Because I'd heard about children growing up in the care system. I'd heard about the challenges and the struggles. But I was looking at my time in the children's home as a very positive time. Right. Funny enough. And
so just to be clear, what do you mean by a residential children's home? What is that?
So my definition of residential children's home, and this varies, sort of from nation to nation or organization to organization. People define it differently.
Right.
But for the purpose of my experience in this book, so having been in a children's home, it basically means when social work services move you from whatever home that you're growing up in, and you go into the care of the government. So essentially the government becomes your parent.
Right.
And a children's home is now it's changed. So you probably have maybe 3 or 4 other people that you're sharing a home with.
Right,
And you
okay.
have members of staff that come in the morning. They are with you throughout the day, supporting you. Then you have another member of staff coming in the night. So it's sort of, like that. And the members of staff, they look after you.
Right,
They
okay.
take you to any appointments that you have,
Yeah.
school drop-offs, depending on, your age.
Yeah.
So it's just having the government raising you or the
Right.
government being your parent.
Okay.
And for me, I realized at that point that there was sort of inconsistency in my experiences in life. So
Right.
moving from place to place when I was
Right.
younger. I was not born in the UK. I was
Right.
born in Zimbabwe. So looking at the different experiences that I'd had, I sort of identified a thread that was always there, that was always consistent.
Right.
And for me, that was my faith.
Right.
And I genuinely believe that my perception of my experience of the care system was shaped by my relationship with God.
Right.
And if I didn't have that, probably I would have had a negative experience with the care
Right.
system. Probably
Right.
my story would have been negative. But actually, for me, it was really positive and it
Right.
brought so many opportunities and it really shaped who I am.
Right.
As an individual,
Interesting.
and now becoming, an academic as well. It's
Yeah.
all stemmed from that experience.
Wow. Okay. Now talk me through your journey. You said you were born in Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you when you moved away from Zimbabwe, and where was that to? Was the UK your first stop? Or?
It was.
Okay.
It was. Yeah. So I was born in Zimbabwe, moved to the UK when I was 12.
Yeah.
So spent quite a long time
Whereabouts
in
did you
Zimbabwe.
land? Were you in
Scotland.
Scotland? Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I think in terms of my identity, values and everything, I think all of that was shaped when I was in Zimbabwe.
Right. Okay.
And then coming to Scotland, change of culture, change of everything really that I
Yeah.
had known.
Must have been a bit of a shock.
Yeah,
Scotland.
it was.
Zimbabwe to Scotland.
The accent, God. I think out of
Pardon?
everything else, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I spent quite a long time trying to understand what people were saying.
Yeah.
So I went through that. And for me, then, looking at... So when I was in Zimbabwe, I didn't live in one place. I did move as well from place to place.
Okay, so that's not just what happened in the UK. That has been quite
it sort of happened when I was younger
Right.
as well. But then I think being in a children's home when I was in Scotland, I had the time to sit down and think, okay, who am I?
Yeah.
What am I doing? I knew my passions. So I knew I had a passion for young people, supporting young people, encouraging them to pursue their dreams, had a passion for education. Gosh, I've always loved all things education. But I was now looking at my journey and just thinking, I've been through ups and downs. I've experienced so many different things that anyone in a traditional home with mom and dad probably wouldn't have experienced. But through all of that, God was with me. And I
Wow.
genuinely believe that's where I got my strength
Wow.
to still be where I
Wow.
am today.
And would you say then that it is your lived experience, not just inspiring this book here, but inspiring your sort of doctoral research? Can we talk about your research then? How
Yeah.
maybe that translates into your PhD?
Yeah, for me, so funny story. When I was younger, living with my grandma at this point,
Yeah.
I had friends who were a year older than me.
Right.
So my friends started primary 1 and I just didn't have anyone to play with.
Right.
And this was in the village in
Right.
Zimbabwe. And my grandma went to the school and spoke to the head teacher and said, can my granddaughter start school as well?
Wow.
She is a year younger.
Younger.
She can then repeat next year. So when next year comes, she can then repeat
Wow.
primary 1. And the head teacher agreed. And when I went into grade 1, I did my exams and I was top of the class.
Wow.
And the head teacher then came to my grandma and said, there's no way you will let her
Repeat the year.
so she just has to carry on. So throughout my time there, I was always younger than everybody in class.
Wow.
But for me, I knew I could do this. I think for me, that's where the confidence
Wow.
sort of emerged from for the first time. And my passion for education, I think it came from that. And then my experience of being in a children's home in Scotland, it actually opened doors for me. So afterwards, when I was looking for work, somebody had heard me speaking somewhere.
Right.
The unit manager, the manager for the children's home, she had heard me speaking somewhere, and she went to a conference, and she felt I would be good as a public speaker.
Wow.
So she introduced me to this organization, and I did so much work with them. I became their ambassador.
Right.
The organization is called Who Cares Scotland.
Right.
And a lot of my work...
Who Cares Scotland?
Who Cares Scotland. A lot of my work involved going to the parliament, speaking to MPs, speaking to the United Nations.
Right.
So I think for me, I started looking at, okay, the care identity, this identity of being in a children's home, it normally carries stigma and something negative.
Stigma, yeah.
But for me, it's been such a positive thing.
Wow.
And I've had supportive people throughout that time. And I just wanted to study a bit more. I just wanted to find out what more can we do for these young people who are raised or who are looked after by the government. What support can we offer them? So majority of my work that I did with Who Cares Scotland, it was always looking at the law.
Right.
And policies, yes, making recommendations. Let's change this, let's change that. And being able to tick things off and say, actually, I was the first person, for example, I spoke to the Commission on widening access and participation.
Right.
And when I spoke to them, I made recommendations regarding student funding and everything like that for care experienced people. And they carried that forward, and it's now the law in Scotland. And whoever picks up...
Wowee.
So whoever picks up that report, they get to read my name because I was the person that suggested that.
Wow.
So for me, my passion sort of grew, and I realized, oh my God, I can create change, right?
Yeah.
So my PhD research, there was nothing else I wanted to research other than, okay, I'm care experience. And earlier on, I think, before we started this, you were talking about intersectionality.
Yes.
Right. So I was thinking, research tells me that as a Black person, I'm less likely to become a professor because only 1%
you
of
are
professors
not visible in that space.
Yeah, being female is even worse. Being a mom, what chance do I have?
How dare you try to succeed in that
Exactly.
space?
And then think about care experienced young people. They are more likely to end up in prison than they are in university. They are more likely to be homeless. They are more likely to suffer from mental health issues, right? So I was then looking at that. I'm female, I'm Black, I'm care experienced, I'm a mom. What opportunity do
Every
I have?
odd is against you.
Every single odd. So that intersection of all these things that are pulling and tugging me away from becoming a doctor, I thought, that's what I want to do.
Okay, so my question though is how did you not end up being just another statistic? So yes, you've spoken about the place of faith and that hope and that light. But my question, like, how did you not become just another statistic of maybe not finishing your GCSEs because you've experienced so much movement, transition, disruption, just not maybe having just mum, dad, maybe siblings around you? How did you not end up another statistic?
You know, it's hard to pinpoint what it was, honestly speaking, but I think it's sort of a combination of several things. So
what are some of those things?
For example, the support. So the manager at the children's home that I went to, she, to me, was like a friend, a mom, I don't know, anything that I needed her to be as and when. She was very adaptable. She knew, okay, at this point, Shilla needs a push. At this point, she needs comfort. So she was really good at being what I needed when I was in the children's home. But after moving out, I don't know, there was always someone along the way. And for example, when I applied for my PhD, I remember long before then, my manager at Who Cares Scotland, I was speaking to him and he gave me the book with the human rights.
Yes.
Yeah, and he wrote a very sweet message. I can't remember word for word what he said, but something about me being the greatest defender of people's human rights. And I carried that with me. I still have it in my house. So when I wanted to apply for my PhD, and obviously, as you know, you're doing a PhD, you need 2 references.
Yeah.
So I reached out to him because he was my previous manager. And he didn't even question me. He just went, I'll do it. And for me, I think it's having those people rooting for me. People that are not necessarily brother, sister, people that are not necessarily the same race, same gender as myself, whatever. Just people that have come along and they have had the faith that I can do what it is that I'm saying I can do. So for me, I think that's been great. Then my husband, obviously being a wife now, I know that could have sort of stopped.
Yeah.
Everything that I was trying to do, but he's very supportive.
Right.
He's very happy. My husband studied architecture.
Right.
But when we got married, he was very happy going, actually, pursue your dreams.
Right.
Go for it. Do that.
Thank you, husband.
Thank you.
Shout out to supportive husbands that allow you to pursue your dreams.
He was happy saying, do that. So when I do need help, he doesn't view that as he's helping me with the kids, because they're his kids.
Yeah.
So he does what needs to be done. So having a supportive husband, having friends who have the same faith that I can do what I'm saying I can do. I think all of that is sort of...
I think you've answered the question then. What's screaming at me is a healthy and a stable, a continuous support system around yourself.
Yeah.
That pushed you, that propelled you, guided you, as people that believed in you and your dreams.
And we need
I think
that.
it's so important, because sometimes we don't even believe in ourselves.
We don't.
We get discouraged, like you said, when imposter syndrome creeps in and we're wondering, am I allowed to sit at this table? Am I allowed to be in this room? But those people that remind you that you are more than able, capable, qualified to be in that space and to thrive is what we need. That's really exciting. Okay. Now, to wrap this up then, I'm looking at the time. I believe that whoever has been listening is very inspired by your journey and your story. Again, against all odds, standing here, sitting here, having achieved so much and is still on the way to achieving much more. What do you advise the person who does feel that against all odds, that maybe these things, whatever it is that they're trying to pursue, is not for them, that whether it's education, whether it's a particular career path, for the person that feels like all the odds are against me and it's not possible for me to excel in a particular area or to chase my dreams, how would you advise them at this moment in time to look forward?
I think with your podcast being Black in Britain, right? We're talking about maybe people who were born elsewhere and they've migrated here, or even individuals who were born here and they are Black. And a lot of times there's this feeling of unbelonging, that you're not really from here. Or, you're being asked, where are you from? Then
where
you say
really
from Liverpool. And it's like, no, but where are you really from? So we can feel that. But I think even though there are negative experiences that we have from time to time, there are barriers that we face from time to time because of race, age, gender, whatever it may be, there are also opportunities in the United Kingdom. So just looking at where you are, you're in the UK. So I'll give an example with the Doctor's Diary, the podcast that I host. I speak to people who've become doctors, and not, every single person I speak to, they have a unique journey that they've been on. So it's not every person who got all A's when they start their A levels.
I didn't get all A's, I'll tell you that much.
But you're doing a PhD.
I did not get all A's.
But it's there's always this notion that to become a doctor, to become this person, you have to be incredibly smart. And you are incredibly smart, but you're not always going to get A's all the time because life happens in the midst of trying to pursue your dreams. So my advice would be, look around you and identify the opportunities, because in that, right in that moment where you are seeing barriers and challenges and everything is screaming impossible, there are those little opportunities that present themselves. There are those doors that are open and they're sort of just waiting for you to walk in. So with me, for example, the first time that I had to speak at a conference, I was nervous, I would say, and even unsure of, can I really do this? But then with time, I got used to it. With time, I became confident. So it's about looking at your dream. What is it that you want to do? And speaking to people who are there, people who've been through that journey, find out how they got there. And the moment you realize that everybody's journey is different, you build that confidence and realize that actually doesn't matter how many times you fall back, you fall down, but as people say, getting up again.
Get back up again.
What's key. So finding people who are where you want to get to, finding the right mentors, people that speak positivity into you, people that genuinely have faith that, you know, you can do what it is you're saying you can do, and also working hard. Because, you know, I can give out all these tips and ideas about surrounding yourself with the right people, but if you don't put in the work,
you have to do the work.
You just won't get there.
You have to do the work.
Yeah, so sometimes that work, what it might look like sacrifice. It might look like, you know, being up at night, doing the work, but it's temporary.
Times and seasons.
Exactly. So that would be my advice. Surround yourself with the right people who support you. Seek out opportunities, network, force yourself to go to those events that you're not quite sure if you fit in. Just go. You never know who you might meet.
Yeah.
You never know where a conversation might actually lead to.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Could be here all day if I'm honest with you. We might have to get you back on, Shilla, because there's a lot of things that we are yet to unpack. But thank you very much for coming on set. I need a copy of this book, please. Can we do like a book club or something, guys? Because we can unpack this.
And I need you on the Doctor's Diary.
You know what? Invite me and I'm there. But that's really exciting. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, and I wish you all the best. Where can we find you online?
Gosh, yeah. So just my name, Shilla Shomai. You'll find me on Instagram. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll find me on Facebook. And Doctor's Diary podcast. You will find me there as well.
Perfect. We'll put all that in the description. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.